word to describe how you're doing as you're arriving today. To use the chat, you can look down at the bottom of your screen for the word chat in a box and click on it. And there you can send a message to the panelists or to everyone. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the technology in a little bit, but just for right now, if you're able to use the chat, if you'll share what state you're coming in from and one word that about how you're arriving today. Oh, wow. I've never seen, I'm looking at the chat here. I can't even keep up. Oh, I just saw a Kentucky. I'm here in Kentucky. It's really hot and I don't have air conditioning. This is amazing. I can't even see, it's going so fast, I can't even see the state. This is really exciting. So for those of you who are just joining, welcome. I'm Sarah Dillon. I'm on staff with the Sierra Club, and we're glad for you to be here on our webinar to kick off our summer of collective action, what we're calling Change Powered by People. So while we're waiting about another minute for everyone to join, can use the chat to tell us what state are you coming here from and what's one word about how you're doing as you're arriving today. It's on my script to be able to respond to some of the states that I'm seeing here, and there's just too many going too fast to be able to even name a few. California, New Mexico, the Bay Area, Florida, Connecticut. I can't even keep reading. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Welcome. We'll talk a little bit more about the technology in just a minute, but so as you can see, folks are sharing what state you're coming in from and one word to describe how you're arriving today. So it's so great to see everybody tuning in. And for those of you just joining, again, just one word to describe how you're arriving today and state that you're arriving from. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the webinar. I'm Sarah Dillon. I'm an organizing manager on staff here at the Sierra Club, and I currently live in Kentucky on occupied Shawnee, Cherokee, and Osage land. I'm originally from Appalachia, and I've come into this work about 14 years ago because my water had been destroyed by coal mining. I joined a local grassroots group as a volunteer, and I got to go to DC for the first time to connect my water issue to federal legislation, very much like this moment we're in. I was nervous as all get out at first, but I got to speak with people like congressional committee chairs and EPA directors. And even though my voice was shaky at times back then, I spoke my truth and my vision for my community. And I always felt like the systems were so big and complicated, and they still are. But by taking action, I began to know that I can show up in those systems and change them, especially with hundreds and thousands and now millions of others. I've gone from advocating for clean water for my community to now demanding an even bolder vision with all of y'all. One rooted in racial and gender justice and the demand for a just and thriving economy, especially for poor and working class people. And to be real, the vision I'm working for now is no less than one of collective liberation. So that's why I'm here. And so I share all of that to say, I'm really excited to be here with y'all and honored to be part of another cycle of power. So before we get started, we're going to explain the technology we're using, and we'll go on to the next slide. Martine.
Yeah, hi, welcome everybody. I want to just first offer that we are going to offer Spanish translation during this webinar. So I want to give I'm going to give brief instructions in Spanish, and we'll get on our way. So bienvenidos a todos para interpretación en español. Haga un clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de la pantalla y haga clic en el idioma que desea escuchar, es decir, español. Haga clic en Mute Original Audio para silenciar todos los demás idiomas. Gracias. Sarah.
Thank you, Martine. So a little bit more about the technology. This is a webinar, which means that y'all can hear me and the other speakers and see the slides, but we won't be able to hear you. We just have too many people to be able to do that. So we do have a great chat function where we can see each other's messages. To use the chat, look at the bottom of your screen for the word in the chat box you can see here on the slide and click it. Here you can send a message to just us panelists or to everyone, the panelists and attendees. We have folks from the Sierra Club team here to help listen to what you're commenting on and thinking. And so during our time together, if you hear something that you're excited about or that resonates with you, you can use a plus sign, that symbol in the chat to really show that something's resonating with you. So let's try it out. Can you put a plus sign in the chat right now to demonstrate what you would use when you're excited about something? There we go. Just dozens, hundreds of people chatting, lots and lots of pluses. I've seen some names I recognize there. That's really great. One important thing to note about the chat is that it's for engagement and kindness only. Sierra Club does not tolerate racism, misogyny, xenophobia, classism, transphobia, or other hate of any kind. While we don't expect any of that will come up today, we do want to know that we will remove folks who happen to exhibit that behavior in the chat. So thanks for that. There are a couple other functions about this webinar we'd like to go into. There's also the Q&A function. It's a place for your questions for our support staff to answer. So if you have a question that comes up during the webinar, please feel free to ask it in the Q&A, and we'll either answer it right away or we'll be answering it later in the webinar. So the chat is for more general support or praise for the speakers and brief comments, while the Q&A is for questions and our responses to those questions. We will also be doing a poll during the call. So when we launch a poll, a pop-up will appear and we'll give you a moment to answer it. So we're going to practice that now so we know and have some practice doing it when we get to it later in the call. So we'd love to hear what you're most excited about organizing for in Congress this summer and fall. And so we're going to launch a poll now and take a second for that. There we go. So let us know, and you can pick more than one. Please do if more than one interests you. You can go to the poll if you're on video. You can't do this if you're on the phone. Are you interested in advancing to 100% clean energy, improving public transit and funding electric vehicles, replacing 100% of lead pipes, eliminating of fossil fuel subsidies, establishing a civilian climate corps, or democracy reforms like For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act? So you can go ahead, we'll take another moment and let the poll run. Again, you can pick multiples and give it just another about 5 seconds or so. Some folks are also answering in the chat. If you want to be putting all of the above, you can go in and click all of them. Okay, we're going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. I think I can end the poll here. And we'll share the results. So I think you should be able to see on your screen if you're on video, lots of folks really interested in advancing to 100% clean energy, but interest all across the board for all the different things that we're working on this summer. So thanks to you all so much for practicing that with us. And somebody else on the tech team can take that poll away if it's still up there. So thanks so much. Okay, I'm going to do an agenda review, and we can go to the next slide for that. We're going to talk a little bit about our role in this moment in time here at the Sierra Club and our strategy for building long-term power for a vision while pushing this summer for historic legislation. We'll hear from some amazing volunteers along the way, and most importantly, we'll share actions you can take right now to give you time to sign up. There will be multiple concrete action items you can take before this webinar is over. So now I'm going to pass it over to my co-host. So please put an exclamation point or two in the chat to welcome and as a way of clapping for Ari Trujillo-Wessler.
Thank you so much, Sarah. My name is Ari Trujillo-Wessler. I use she and they pronouns. I am coming to you from Ohlone Territory, aka East Oakland, California. And I am the acting director of grassroots power building at the Sierra Club, which means that y'all are my work, which is such an incredible bounty. I'll tell you a little bit about myself first, but I first want to give a shout out to all the folks that are working so hard. Mo, Martine, Jack, like all Chelsea, all of the folks, Miranda, who are actually helping to make this possible, to help hold container for this space. And so thank you so much for your leadership and for making all the things you're about to learn about possible. So I will tell you briefly about myself. My first organizing action, I was 4 years old, and I was collecting petitions to ban organic grapes and non-organic grapes and raisins from my elementary school district when I was 4. in solidarity with the No Uvas campaign that the United Farm Workers were running at the time. And nobody ever told me that when I was 4, that I was working at the intersections of environmental justice and democracy and solidarity. But it is turned out that actually those actions and the threads of them have defined my life. And so I most recently came to the Sierra Club as we moved from shifting from working in solidarity with folks to actually, I was living in Sonoma County when the wildfires really started in earnest and burned a third of our housing stock to the ground overnight. And what I've seen is, and the thing that makes me so excited to hang out with y'all, is that communities united by shared purpose and hope can actually do anything. We can live through the unlivable, we can transform our systems, we can manifest the promise of our democracy. And so thank you all for joining here tonight.
Ari, before you go on, I've got a request for you to speak up.
Oh, to speak up. Okay. I will try to do that. Is this better? Okay, let's try that. I'm not normally knocked for being quiet, so we'll try. It is amazing to watch all you folks being so active in the chat and see all of your enthusiasm and all the reasons you have come here. I also saw a note as we were flying by, like, the reason we're here for this call is not because I'm trying to build an email list or I'm trying to pitch you on anything other than manifesting the promise of our democracy and setting the new foundation for the next 10 years of environmental justice and climate work. So if you're in for that, like, please strap in because we'll talk about the moment that we're about to walk into. Liz, can you take us to the next slide, please? So this is the Sierra Club. Some of y'all might have worked with us before, or some of you might have come hiking with us when you were kids. Your family members were members, and so are you. But regardless if you're a new friend or an old friend, welcome. One of the things I like the most about us, and we'll talk about this statement, which we call our theory of change in a moment, but one of the things that I think makes the Sierra Club truly transformational is that joy is literally at the center of our work, right? Our slogan is to explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. And I think hopefully you get an experience of the way in which we try to center joy in our relationships as we are doing this work. To be in just relationship with our environment, but also to hold our government and powerful entities accountable on their end of that bargain. So everything we're going to talk about today is about how we, all of the folks that are on this call, all the folks that are watching on YouTube, how we can work together to create a just, equitable, and sustainable future built on a foundation of racial, economic, and gender equity, where all people can benefit from a healthy and thriving planet. So next slide, please. So you will hear a lot about our priorities, like we're going to iterate them a bunch to you tonight, and I'm so delighted to see the resonance for all of these issues in our poll. But we'll talk about them briefly right now, which is really fighting for a democracy of, by, and for the people. Even if we are successful in all the things we're fighting for, with both For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we have a generation of fights because Jim Crow and voter suppression are alive and well. And in our fight to actually fight for a just and transformational planet, the folks who are fighting against democracy are also fighting against a clean energy future. Speaking of which, we also want a clean, safe, and just economy that doesn't leave anyone behind, equitable climate solutions that work for the folks that are most impacted, for us to protect and actually restore our lands, air, and water, and to really fight for environmental justice to be at the center of how we as the Sierra Club show up as an ally and an organization in all the spaces that we work in. So yeah, I will pass it back to Sarah.
Thanks so much, Ari. This is really great to be able to be on this call and to co-host with Ari. And so I thank you and appreciate you, Ari. I'm going to speak for a little bit about who and where we are and how we do things. So we're showing you this slide here, and as you can see, we are everywhere. We have 10,000 volunteer leaders working in one of our 64 chapters or local groups, or one of our state or national teams. The Sierra Club is the millions of everyday people, the 3.8 million members and supporters that make up this organization. And now I want to talk for a moment about how we want to do our work to achieve our priorities. To achieve the ambitious long-term goals that Ari just mentioned, the Sierra Club is committed to working within the larger climate change and climate justice and social justice movement by taking a role that is in alignment with values and principles and agreements we have made to leaders of those organizations that we work with in ongoing partnerships. In particular, the Sierra Club is committed to upholding the Jemez principles for democratic organizing when working in partnership with frontline and environmental justice groups. The Jemez principles were created in 1996 during a meeting hosted by the Southwest Network for Environmental and Economic Justice, with the intention of hammering out common understandings between participants from different cultures, politics, and organizations. That discussion resulted in a set of principles that were offered as guidance to white-led environmental organizations like the Sierra Club as a starting place for our work to be in partnership together. And eventually, the Sierra Club Board of Directors formally adopted these principles in 2014. So in 2021 and going forward, it is not enough just to share these words with you. It's important that together we reflect on them and make a commitment to practice them every day by holding ourselves accountable as individuals within the Sierra Club community and when we work with partners. So I'm going to share the principles with you. You can see them here on the slide, but I'll also read them. And in just a moment, I'll ask you to commit or to recommit to upholding these principles in the chat by putting a plus sign. So for those of you who are hearing about the Jemez principles for the first time, we are adding a link in the chat so you can learn more on your own. These principles are, and these are principles that are being asked of us and have been asked of us by frontline environmental justice organizations, that we be inclusive, that we put emphasis on bottom-up organizing, that we let people speak for themselves, that we work together in solidarity and mutuality, we build just relationships among ourselves, and we have a commitment to self-transformation. So again, in the chat, please put a plus to commit to upholding these Jemez principles. And if you see one that particularly resonates with you, feel free to lift it up in the chat there. One of the reasons it's so important for me to recommit to organizing with the Sierra Club and to the Jemez principles, especially within the framework of the Jemez principles, is because I value justice. And justice to me means ensuring that we both protect what we can and repair and restore what has been harmed. And the way we get there is by millions of everyday people joining together to create a healthier, more equitable future. And I really mean it when I say that the only way we're going to reclaim our humanity and ensure the sustainability of our planet is with each and every one of you. So just seeing lots and lots and lots of pluses and shout outs to being inclusive a lot. I'm seeing that a lot. Grassroots organizing. Thanks you all for your commitment and for recommitting to the Jemez principles. And really want to encourage you when you start meetings, when you come into this work as the Sierra Club, to really orient towards these principles at the beginning of things. So it's exciting to see that a lot of people are active, engaged right now. So later in the call, we're going to talk much more in depth about the concrete action steps you can take today, one of the reasons we're here. But right now we're going to pause to share these links with you as a little bit of a preview. So if you want to get started, you can. You can take an early look and sign up, and we'll talk more detail about it later. So we can go to the next slide, and these will be posted in the chat. So if you want to sign up for a next step that we're going to share at the end of this call, you can go to a couple different links. If you're interested in organizing an event or learning more about what that might be, you can go to sc.org/organize. That's SC as in Sierra Club. sc.org/organize. And then we'll also have a training series to help you every step along the way for organizing, but also just in your own development and growth. So if you want to check that out, you can go to sc.org/trainings. So if you're interested in joining our training series, you can go to sc.org/trainings. And like I said, we'll be back towards the end of the call to tell you in more detail about these. And so now I'm going to introduce you to someone who is here to speak to us from Oregon. During this past year, politically and otherwise, there's been a lot of ups and downs. And we want to take a moment to celebrate one of our volunteers and hear his story. He's just really come in the past little bit. And as you'll see, his story helps to show that the strength of people like you, activists and volunteers, and the strength of the Sierra Club working to influence decision makers to take action can help achieve our bright future. So if you all will take a moment with me to welcome into the chat with some exclamation points, Evan Reynolds.
Hey, everyone. It's great to be here with you. I'm Evan, use he, him pronouns. And, my story is I had been connected to the Sierra Club for many years, but always as a spectator on advocacy. And for me, that changed last year between my growing concern and feeling of personal urgency around our climate emergency, but then also seeing the incredible groundswell of people speaking up about racial justice following the murder of George Floyd. That was my kick in the pants to get involved. So I jumped into the 2020 election. I did letter writing with the Sierra Club, phone banking, text banking, probably like a lot of you did. And after that, we won. And I went to a call like this to figure out what can we do next. And I was really inspired to learn about the Sierra Club's approach to clean energy organizing, the fact that it takes this massive problem and grounds it in issues of justice and equity. And for me, as someone coming from a background of privilege, it offered a way to really be a meaningful part of transformational change as the way out of this crisis we're in. So before long, I got connected into our clean energy work here in Oregon. I hadn't been active locally in that. And our local clean energy task force has been serving as an ally organization to a grassroots, BIPOC, rural, frontline-led coalition that was gearing up for our legislative session that started in January. It was really perfect time to jump in. And the strategy was to focus on how much climate change is impacting our most vulnerable folks across the state. And so we rolled up our sleeves, all of us in the coalition, virtual lobby days, phone banking, text banking. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. And last month, we were able to pass the most ambitious state level clean electricity standard in the country. So I'm here ready to see where we go next with this and excited to be part of these efforts.
Thanks so much, Evan. Thanks for joining us and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And know that it can be a vulnerable thing to join a big call like this and tell your story. So let's be sure to help Evan feel good about stepping into that role, being pretty new to this the cycle of work by showing him some appreciation in the chat. I see some rainbows, lots of pluses and exclamation points, so thank you. For more than 127 years, people have come together through the Sierra Club to take action, to take a stance, to build power and work toward progress. And in the next decade, we will strive to create a community that centers the values of equity so that we are able to create a world and an organization where people are able to belong and make a difference in the air we breathe, in the water we drink, in the wildlife we protect, in the outdoor places we enjoy, in the places where we live, and for the people we love in our community, where everyone can shine fearlessly, knowing that we are all here because together we are powerful. So if you haven't already, take a moment to share a few words or a phrase in the chat box about why you think we are more powerful together. So I'll pause for just a moment to let folks do that. So in the chat box, why do you think we are more powerful together? I'm still just fascinated by how active and how many hundreds of people are participating in this chat. Thanks, everyone. Keep it coming. Unity, collective energy, supportive momentum, lots of great stuff. So Ari, I will go back to you to talk about this moment.
Thank you for that, Sarah. And thank you all for sharing the things that bring you here and the folks that you carry as we do this work. both obviously in dynamic opposition to some forces, but also like joyfully planting the seeds for a future that we all believe in and are striving for. So this is our ask, is that for folks who are here, who have been a part of the club for a while, who are just starting to know us and start to learn in the ways in which we do that work, our ask is that you join us this summer as we build our shared future together. And specifically are working to use our collective power to demand from Congress that they meet this moment and really take the scale of dramatic action that this crisis actively demands. And so I think you can go to the next slide, please, Liz. So we voted on this earlier. Folks mentioned this in the polls, and obviously there's a bunch of things that resonate about this. Our 6 large priorities around the legislation, and we'll talk to you all a little bit more about what is happening, because I know that I've been on a little bit of a learning curve myself around budget reconciliation and like actual bills and what does that mean. But all of them are encapsulated. We'll talk to you a little bit more about the strategy, but these are the big things that we are striving and demanding, right? We're asking that Congress push for and approve a 100% clean energy standard and really back that up with both cash on hand and tax incentives to actually put folks who are actually trying to do that work and build that infrastructure on a level playing field with their fossil fuel opponents. To also improve access to public transit, cars, trucks, and buses in order to make not only the entire country more accessible to all folks, regardless of income, but also in order to actually really dramatically change the carbon footprint that the United States has in the world. To end fossil fuel subsidies, to end the percentage of our tax dollars that goes to subsidizing actively polluting and harming the planet. My personal favorite, to replace 100% of the lead pipes in our America, and to retrofit and electrify all public housing, schools, hospitals, and finally, to create a civilian climate corps so that we can empower a generation of folks to help clean up the environment and start to actively further restoration work that is so desperately needed across everything. We're also fighting, it's really important to name this, for our democracy. So these are the core things that are encapsulated in the reconciliation bill and the bipartisan infrastructure package that we'll be talking to you about later. But I would be remiss not to mention both the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, both of which are currently have both passed Congress, and we're looking for actual votes to pass them in the Senate. And if you've seen the 349 voter suppression bills that have come out as a backlash to the victory of the last election, the historic voter turnout that we saw. If you've seen that, please know that if you were looking for what can we do in order to be in solidarity with our comrades in Georgia and Texas and all across the United States who are fighting for more just and equitable elections, please know that our solution is no further than passing the For the People Act, which would instate a national floor for democracy and also for elections access. So yeah. Those are the things that I can share with you. I will pass it back to Sarah, who's going to tell you a little bit about how we plan to win those things and what you can do to help.
Great. Thanks, Ari. And I'm glad you, as you were speaking on the emphasis on the infrastructure and climate and reconciliation bits of legislation, we'll talk more about. Folks were mentioning like what's happened to the voting rights parts of the bills. And so really, thanks for bringing that into the space, even though it was on the slide. It's still very, very much a priority. And as someone said in the chat, without these, the long-term wins on the other priorities aren't possible, in addition to the moral obligation to pass these things in and of themselves. And so as we face the daunting challenge of recovering from COVID and fighting the climate crisis and addressing our country's ongoing racial and economic inequalities, more than people than ever are imagining what our society and economy could look like if it were designed by us, for us, not with corporations or the wealthy few. So as Congress debates over how to spend these trillions of dollars on infrastructure and recovery plans, we have the opportunity to shape our society and our economy for years to come by investing in health for our communities, a stable climate, and creating good jobs and in caring for each other in our collective future. And we plan to push for this legislation we need using the power we have built, while building even more of the equity and justice-centered people power we know we need for the long-term transformation we seek. And so I'm going to speak a little bit about our plan of action and our approach. So movements endure because people, volunteers, dedicated staff, leaders across the country who have been fighting for environmental and racial justice for decades, and every single person who believes in the right to clean water, clean air, and clean land is a human right. This is the moment to recommit ourselves to each other, that we will continue fighting for the future we know is possible. The presidential and congressional victories of 2020 give us the opportunity to make real progress, but this is by no means a guarantee. We know what we have to do. We have a simple theory of change. We build power to wield power, to build power, to wield power. We work to build power by organizing campaigns and building teams of leaders and networks of action takers. Then we wield or use that power to put pressure on decision makers. And then we start another cycle of power building, as we've seen that Evan talked with us about coming in through the election and different opportunities for taking action. We continue to build more power. But we want to acknowledge that what we build is built on a rich history of change makers who have come before us and who have transformed the world by resisting injustice, fighting for liberation, and building new paths forward through people power. I really want to pause and emphasize that. What we are doing as the Sierra Club is building on a rich history that's come before us. We collaborate with our allies and partners towards deep, long-lasting, and transformational change. And so whether you are a seasoned action taker or this is your very first time getting involved, we have a pathway for you to be an effective advocate for our planet and our communities. So we'd like to share with you just a little more detail about the organizing model we've developed to do this kind of power building and power wielding work within the context of the Sierra Club. I know when I know a little bit of the background information about how things work, one, I enjoy it, and two, I know it's more motivating for me and I know where I fit in and the bigger thing I'm contributing to. So we're going to share a little bit about that. When an opportunity like the legislation this summer arises, we start by doing outreach to our existing members and supporters, connected both to local chapters and to the national organization. And that's y'all here right now. And we invite people into action. And we'll learn a little bit more about that specifically a little bit later. And then we support folks in taking organizing action. And then as you see, we're going around the circle here into the yellow, into stepping into leadership roles through coaching and training, which we help provide. And in the midst of this activity and leadership, new folks will come in through our communities and networks when they learn about what we're doing. And then we invite them into the next cycle. We work hard to win our issues through each cycle by wielding that power. And by cycling again and again, we build our power each time, which leads us to bigger, bolder, and more transformational wins. So in this cycle, we're starting with this kickoff webinar to give lots and lots of folks an orientation and a menu of options, and then immediate next steps to get involved. And we will be combining action with learning and rolling out our training and coaching programs led by volunteer leaders that we recruit to train and support. And now we're going to go back to Ari, who's going to tell us about what's going on this summer with the federal legislation we're pushing for and taking action on. Oh, you're on mute. Oh no, Ari's stuck on mute. I can't. So I'm going to keep going with the script for a little bit, and then if our tech folks can, Ari, you just say something if you're able to come back on mute, and we'll pass the baton. So right now, the congressional clock is ticking. And so to achieve these 6 important priorities that Ari told us about a little bit earlier, we're going to share them again. And to note, these are just the ones related to the big infrastructure and climate work that we're doing. That's the focus for this. This doesn't include the voting rights work and democracy work that is also a co-priority for us. And so to achieve these priorities of 100% clean energy and millions of good jobs, a creative civilian climate core, robust public transit investments, an end to fossil fuel subsidies, replacing 100% of lead pipes, retrofitting and electrifying all public housing and schools and hospitals, and all of this with strong equity, labor, and environmental standards to ensure investment in frontline and historically marginalized communities. We know that Congress must swiftly this summer pass a big, bold legislative package that is likely to move in 2 chunks. I'm gonna take just a second to see.
I'm back.
There you are. So we're just talking about the, you want to pick up around the bipartisan infrastructure package?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about infrastructure packages. And I also want to highlight for folks in the chat, because I want to make sure my conservation chairs feel seen, that we also are incredibly proud of the work that we're doing with the Department of Interior around preserving 30% of federal lands by 2030. And so I want to name that we have already made a lot of really significant victories there. And this work is in parallel and in addition to that, because in addition to conserving what we have now, we absolutely also need to be fighting to transform the bad and to build the good. So briefly, the bipartisan infrastructure package is a good place to start. It has actually been negotiated over by a whole bunch of folks inside of Congress. It includes a lot of really good, amazing things around actually like moving us in the direction of where we want to go around energy transformation, rebuilding the energy grid, weatherization. However, on its own, it's not enough. And so what's most core to share with y'all is that we need both the bipartisan infrastructure package and the reconciliation bill to pass in order for us to have the scale of investments that we need in order to moving forward towards a more just clean energy future, but also to lay the foundation that's necessary for us as a society to actually transition significantly more of our energy from the fossil fuel industry into clean energy and start walking back the impacts of climate change at scale. So hopefully folks can hear me okay. I'm so sorry if I'm a little clunky, but I would love to turn it over right now to talk to the amazing Angel Bradford, an incredible leader we have based in New Orleans, Louisiana, who will talk about her experience as a volunteer and the amazing ways her leadership has helped transform the Sierra Club.
All right. Hi. Okay, great. You can hear me and see me.
Mm-hmm.
Am I loud enough?
Yeah. Sounds good to me. Yeah.
All right, good. Hey, y'all. So, okay, yes, Angel, she, her, hers, and calling from New Orleans. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, and organize with the Delta chapter, which is Louisiana's chapter. And I've been organizing and advocating in the environmental space for quite a few years now, learning from Sierra Club leaders, staff, volunteers, but 2021 was the first year that I ever really tried to marry the grassroots work with political or civic advocacy at the Capitol. I usually just kind of follow the lead of those that are leaders that have been around for decades. But this is the first year that I've gone to the Capitol to really speak on subject matter that I didn't necessarily feel confident about originally. But in February of this year, Sierra Club participated in Transit Equity Day. And my chapter took on a commitment to statewide connectivity and public transit as a civil right and a public good. And we were grounded by toolkits and calls and trainings like this one. So we became really familiar with the language and the issues we needed to rally around. And this work intersected with our legislative session here in Louisiana, which started in April. And it's our own legislature was debating the merits and logistics of our own infrastructure statewide bill. And just for context, Louisiana is a wild card when it comes to legislative session. You cannot easily take national politics and just juxtapose it, or that's what I mean, just kind of place it right on the state or the legislature. You quite literally never know what you're gonna get. And so what's great about that, about having a Democrat governor, and while we have a Republican-led legislature, we have enough of other parties, so Democrats and independents, to really lead to robust conversations, and you can actually sway the minds of your leaders. So we can actually sway the minds of our leaders and really see the power of people and the power of a letter or a phone call in real time. So they're actually movable. And so with the help of Sierra Club staff and different parts of the Sierra Club, I felt fortified enough to co-create the transit equity work we're doing and to make demands and ask and to build relationships. And our chapter is able to set ourselves up for success for next year, and even found allyship with a Republican from an overlooked rural part of Louisiana. And he's very remarkable and reasonable and warm and approachable. And so our team of 3, including myself, prepared for our original meeting with this legislator by really defining the agenda and the story we wanted to tell about, and also get to understand his experience with Louisiana and centering a part of Louisiana that's outside of New Orleans and outside of South Louisiana, because that often happens. And we thought about what he would care about, and frankly, just had a conversation to determine his story, hear what his values are and his concerns are, and to find a common ground for what we could accomplish together. And so we continue to chat and keep in touch with him. As you never meet a stranger here in Louisiana, we are fast friends. And these are also relationships that are crucial for legislative work, for making ask of agency officials and of our federal representatives and senators. And so we're building that network for the powerful summer of action that we're talking about tonight. And so I'm super excited and grateful to be building with y'all and to be included on this call.
Thank you so much, Angel. Can folks hear me okay? I'm so sorry. It seems like my internet is freezing a little bit.
You're great.
Great. Thank you so much, Angel, for sharing that. And also for folks who are not familiar with our chapters, I highly encourage you to get involved, especially if you want to be involved in local action year round. And so I also want to invite y'all to come and join us and take the next step in planning these actions and launching these calls and actually getting into the lobby visits with all of these members of Congress and letting them know that we need them to demand transformative action now. And so I know that a few folks already have done this. And so I encourage more of y'all too. There's 861 of you on this call. So please go to sc.org/organize right now in order to actually get started, get signed up, get plugged in. And if you're looking for how it is that you could contribute, like what kinds of events are available, the amazing Sarah Dillon will walk you through some options right now about the ways in which we have built toolkits to support various forms of this work. I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Ari. And thank you, Angel, as well. And there was something I just saw in the chat that I wanted. Oh, and somebody asked if we could expand a little bit more on infrastructure and on the bills, I think. And so to know that, I know we haven't gone really deep in here. We wanted to really frame up the reasons why we were doing things and have you hear from folks who were motivating. I heard, Angela, a lot of people in the chat were just saying how what you were sharing was inspiring and encouraging. We really wanted to focus on these sorts of things. And then there will be a training. So this is a pitch for one of our trainings to sign up to learn how to lobby on these issues where you can learn more detail. So back to what Ari was starting to share with us, we're going to dig in a little bit more on our big collective of summer of action, our summer of collective action to push for a big and bold climate infrastructure package and for crucial democracy protections like For the People Act. And so this summer, Sierra Club's network of chapters and organizers will be organizing events across the country to ensure our elected officials know we are watching and we expect nothing less than an infrastructure package that fully invests in societal transformation and towards a just, sustainable, and thriving planet. So we're just going to give a little bit of overview right now, and then we will give you actually time on the call to go and do some of these things. And so we're going to do a poll. So here's a little heads up to be aware of. We practiced that poll at the beginning. We're going to do one at the end after we give you a couple of minutes to go check these things out and sign them up to see who all signed up for what. So we can really see what kind of things we're having and coming up this summer. And so we can be motivated and inspired by each other. So just a heads up on that poll will be happening. But first, we want to share with you what you can take action on right now. So action number 1 is to organize an event during this big summer push. Action number 2 is to join our series of exciting trainings to expand your skills for building power and taking action. And then we'll give you a little tiny sneak peek about a great interactive feature where you'll be able to see other events and actions near you this summer. Okay, action number 1, next slide. And so this August and September, your elected officials will be back home in your district to hear from you, their constituents. And we want to make sure that they hear from us loud and clear. We will be flooding their offices, phone lines, mailboxes, social media pages with our movement's demands, the things you've heard about previously. And so you can start and help with this in a few ways. And the first is to gather your people to take action together. So either through an organizing party, which could be a garden party, a Zoom party, you can organize your friends, family, and neighbors to take collective action, whether through making phone calls or writing letters to the editor of your local paper, making beautiful banners or posters to hang in your home or in your community. And you can amplify your voice by organizing people in your community to join hands with you, to letting our decision makers know what we need and what we want. So go to sc.org/organize, and we're going to put this in the chat multiple times so you can click on it. And I'm going to keep sharing more about this action. I want you to go right now, keep the audio on and go to another, open a web browser and go check it out right now. So in addition to organizing your community to taking action together, you can also bring your message straight to Congress. We will be training and supporting hundreds of activists in doing in-person or virtual lobby visits, whatever you're comfortable with and that people you're working with are, where you can get FaceTime with your elected officials for maximum impact. So you can go to sc.org/organize to sign up to host a party or to say you're interested in lobbying. If you sign up, you're going to have a lot of support. Folks are going to reach out to you to make sure you're supported in being able to do this along the way, whether it's hosting a party or lobbying your member of Congress. There'll be online trainings, one-on-one coaching, toolkits, and we can go to the next slide just to make sure folks see in a different way this link of sc.org/organize. You can go ahead and go there. And these actions will be happening all month, but we're going to close out this push with an especially big week of action on the very last week of recess. And I see somebody just put on it, which is really great. So would love to see more of that. This final week of recess, September 7th through 12th, will be our big push to make sure our elected officials, before they head back to Washington, D.C., know exactly when we want them and what we want them to do. So go to sc.org/organize right now to learn more and get started. And remember, we'll be coming back so folks can report and you can say on the poll that you've signed up to do this, and we can see and be inspired by each other. I see a question, when is the last week of recess? And that is September 7th through the 12th. And can we hook folks up regionally? That's, yeah, if you go and you post an event, other folks will be able to see it. And then when we give the sneak peek of the map at the end, folks can also see other things that are happening regionally. So we have this short window of the next 2 to 3 months to do something enormously important. And it's not an overstatement to call this a once in a generation opportunity to shape our economy and society for decades to come. We have got to seize it. And I hope y'all are with me, with us. And so if so, we're going to take just a couple more moments for you to sign up right now. So you can either click on it. If for some reason you can't click in the chat, you can just type into your browser sc.org/organize.
And I can hop in here, Sarah, and give you your voice a break as folks are going through. For folks who are like, I'd rather join an event, or, you know, Barbara Lee's my representative, I know she's on board, right? It's actually very, very helpful for you to let your members of Congress know exactly how you feel and that you have their back, because what we're asking them to do is to really go to the mat for a transformative opportunity. What we're looking at between the bipartisan infrastructure package and budget reconciliation is actually the largest investment in US infrastructure, both at a federal, state, and local level since the New Deal passed. And so we won't have another opportunity like this probably for like another 100 years. And so folks need to hear from us that we need them to hold the line and to go bold and to demand more. And for folks who are interested in joining another event, As Sarah mentioned, we'll share the link. We'll give you a preview of the map where you can find actions that are happening nearby you. For folks who have concerns, right, we are very aware that we're in the time of the pandemic. And so most of the actions that we're encouraging folks to take are actually outside. So having folks join in community in parks, or to organize banner rallies in folks' backyards, to then take actions outside, to reach out to members of Congress, a lot of whom are still taking lobby visits virtually, or to meet or meeting constituents outside. Those are all, there's a bevy of options for folks to get involved in. And so please go to sc.org/organize if you're down to organize an event. We will drop a link for the trainings as well. So if you've never talked to a member of Congress before, but you're like, this is the time. I had someone teach me how to do my first lobbying when I was a teenager, and it's stuck with me ever since. And so we will absolutely show you exactly what you need to do, help you learn how to figure out how to do it your way, because we won't hand you exact talking points, because what we need, what your members of Congress need to hear is your voice more than anything else. And so, yeah, I'm curious, Sarah, if I turn it back to you, if there's other things you want to add for folks who are excited to join but still have questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things I was seeing in various chats. And so on our back end, last time I looked, it said we had 60 commitments for people to sign up, and I was going to be like, let's really try to get to 100. And now we already have 94. In just a minute or two, Ari, while you were talking, 34 more people went and signed up for things. And so, yeah, and a couple of questions were like, how do I know who to lobby? And those sorts of things. Go sign up just to give yourself the opportunity for someone to be in touch with you, to help get you prepared. Step into that next thing, like push your boundary just a little bit to do that thing that makes you nervous and makes your knees shake. And so we're going to talk a little bit longer to give you a couple minutes like this, what Ari was just starting to talk about, which is our action number 2. And so this, I think, will answer some folks' questions for folks that are in the chat about how you can get trained to do these things, as well as just for your own personal sort of growth and learning your organizing skills. And so if you remember on our organizing model slide with the cycle down at the bottom, we included support and leadership development. And that's what the second action opportunity is all about. It's to help you, and therefore helping the movement to develop the skills to become a powerful leader. And so if you go to sc.org/trainings, you can check out these series of trainings, and they're starting this time next week. So I'm going to sort of do that repetitive public television telethon voice, just to sort of stall for time, help you to remember it in your head there, giving you time right now to go sign up for the trainings. And you can sign up for 1 or 2 or all 5 of them. So there's 1 a week for the next 5 weeks to really help support you in taking action over this summer of collective action, which we know is so necessary. And I see folks in our chat are really hitting up the link so nobody misses it there, and really appreciate that. So while you're doing that to go sign up for the trainings, I'm just gonna preview a few of the ones that we have coming up. And so this first one coming up next Tuesday, August 3rd, is on climate justice, equity, and the Sierra Club. And so that's where you can go deeper into the things that we really started talking on this webinar about the Jemez principles and why it's so important to us as a big green organization to show up in the movement with equity and to be real partners in climate justice. And so you'll learn a lot about what our approach is to that and develop your skills around that area of equity and climate justice. So you can go to sc.org/trainings to sign up. The second one, I think, really speaks to what some of the questions folks had that I saw in the chat is the week after that, 2 weeks from now, is Tuesday, August 10th, is lobbying for change. And so it's a lobbying 101. You'll learn how to effectively communicate. You'll learn the process of doing it, but you'll also learn about the content of what you'll be speaking about to go lobby. So you can go to the sctrainings.org to sign up for that. One that I really love that I think is really important to learn how to do for all of our work across the board is to learn how to tell your personal story and to build power and to connect to others. And in the way that Angel was telling us about going and speaking to a legislator, making that connection, telling a story and making a real person-to-person connection to make change. And so that's 3 weeks from now on August 17th sc.org/trainings to sign up for that. The training number 4 is making your activism sparkle and shine. So if you signed up to do an action, to do an event, and you want to learn some tips and tricks for how to make it real exciting and creative and active, you can go to that one. And our 5th and final one is right before the August recess starts. Does your senator tweet? So this will be a training on online activism and social media advocacy. And so you can learn how, like some folks were learning, I saw in the chat where said they prefer sort of sitting at home and doing some things. This is one of the things that you can do. And then of course, there'll be opportunities for phone banking and texting and things like that. Okay, so that's sc.org/trainings. And then finally, I'm going to give you a quick sneak preview of something that's not fully rolled out yet, but we can go to 2 slides ahead, and you can go to sc.org/map. And so for folks who are a little more comfortable just showing up for an event, and somebody asked the question, how will we know what else is happening in our area, or will you connect us regionally? If you go to sc.org/map, that will be, as these events are showing, people put them in, they will show up more and more at this link, and you can find stuff that you want to do, both in person, virtually, either locally, and there'll be national stuff put on there as well. Okay. So now that we've taken a few moments, me being a little repetitive here to give you all time to sign up for these things, we're going to launch a poll, and we are going to take about 30 seconds to see how many folks out there signed up for one thing or another. So if we can launch the poll, there you go. So have you signed up for anything yet? You can put that I signed up to organize an event. I signed up for one or more of the training series. I signed up for both of the above. You can also put that you need more time, you're still considering, but you will sign up soon. So gonna go ahead and just let this run for a little bit. We already have getting near 150 people signing up for the training series, more than 200 that said they're going to sign up soon. 54 people signed up for both trainings and to organize an event. That's really great.
And here for you, Sarah.
Thank you.
As this poll is running. Also shout out to Sarah Dillon, who erstwhilely offered to talk for 10 minutes straight at this point in the call when my computer froze. For folks who are like, I'm in coalition, or I have a group of folks I already organized with, right? Like, invite those folks to come to this training with you. Like, this is not closed in any way. So please, like, spread the word, bring folks with you. If you're looking for a buddy to sign up and set up an action, I saw Danny wanting to hold like a bike rally to go out and talk to some members of Congress. Like, come to one of the trainings and see if there's someone else in the region who wants to do that work with you. And also invite other folks who are interested, because like, if you have a crew of folks you organize with, like, absolutely, the way I got super involved in organizing was a friend invited me to a training. And that's where I found my organizing home for like the next like 5 years. So like, please share this around, like, go to the map and see if there are other folks who are organizing stuff, sign up, reach out to them, join up and combine your collective strength. I know that we are at time. So thank you so much to everyone who's been doing this work. Shout out to Miranda and Chelsea and Martine and Liz and Rachel and all the folks, and Jack, and all the other folks who have been doing so much hard work behind the scenes to make this meeting possible. Thank you to everyone who showed up and attended and spent some time like digging into this with us and learning about how to engage with action. Please check out the links in the chat. Please go to a training, sign up to run an event, or join us at one of these events, and there will be plenty of opportunities to make phone calls, write letters, to send text to folks, because we're going to need every single one of us to contribute our experience, our strength, our superpowers to helping make the most of this moment and to really set the platform for the next 10 years, if not century, of this fight. So thank you all so very much for your support, your enthusiasm, and I hope that you're able to stay with us, not only for the next set of things that we have to work on, but also to stay and enjoy the benefits of our work by joining us on a hike sometime. Thank you all so much.